There's a moment, subtle but undeniable, when you realize the things that used to comfort you now feel hollow. The music doesn't hit the same. The conversations feel like recycled scripts. The distractions that once drowned your anxiety now only echo it louder, and you begin to wonder, what's wrong with me? But that's the wrong question. Nothing's wrong. You're not broken. You're waking up. What you're feeling isn't depression. It's disillusionment. And that's not weakness. It's the beginning of clarity. Because here's the truth. For years, you adapted to a life that didn't fit you. You wore masks so well you forgot your real face. You chased goals that weren't yours, fulfilled roles you never chose, and numbed the discomfort with stimulation. But now, the numbness is wearing off. If you enjoy this type of video, remember to like and subscribe to the channel. That's what waking up feels like, not some magical enlightenment. But friction, irritation, emptiness. A quiet scream inside that says, this isn't it. Of course it hurts. Of course you feel lost. You're peeling off layers of yourself that were never truly you. And what's underneath isn't polished. It's raw, chaotic, unfamiliar. You're not malfunctioning. You're realigning. The question is, will you sedate yourself back into sleep? Or will you dare to stay awake, even when it stings? Most people run back to noise, back to validation, back to autopilot. Because facing yourself without filters, that's terrifying, but also necessary, because discomfort is not your enemy. It's your compass. And if you follow it with honesty, it will take you somewhere real. So before you medicate the pain, distract it, bury it, ask, what is this trying to show me? Sometimes the ache is not a wound. It's the birth of something true. You start to speak differently, think differently. Maybe you pause before agreeing to things you once accepted blindly. You begin asking questions, not out loud, but inside. Why am I doing this? Who told me this matters? And suddenly, the world around you starts to twitch. No one says it outright. They joke. They mock. They give unsolicited advice, masked as concern. They say you're too intense now, or that you overthink everything, but their smiles are nervous. Their eyes are measuring you. What they're really saying is, you're making us uncomfortable. That's what happens when you stop performing the version of yourself they're used to, when you stop shrinking, when you start becoming honest. Your mental evolution begins to threaten their emotional comfort, and no one likes to feel exposed. Because here's the part no one admits. Most people aren't afraid of your failure. They're terrified of your growth. When you elevate your thinking, you don't need to preach. Your presence alone becomes confrontational. It forces people to see their own stagnation, and that scares them, so they pull back. Or worse, they pull you down, not because they're evil, but because your awakening disrupts the script. They want the old you back, the predictable one, the easy one, the version that didn't force them to question their own complacency. It's biological. The same way a body can reject an organ that doesn't match, people reject the new you when it no longer fits the group identity. But this is the price of becoming real. Not everyone will recognize you. Some will try to silence you. Others will just disappear. And you? You'll start to realize the more you become yourself, the fewer people remain. And that's not a tragedy. It's a filter. It doesn't start with clarity. It starts with collapse. One day you look around and nothing makes sense anymore. Your job feels meaningless. Your relationships feel forced. The routines you used to follow now feel like prison bars. And there's no manual for this. No clear aha moment. Just a quiet implosion happening inside you, like your soul is tired of pretending. You try to keep it together. You smile. You show up. You play the part. But deep down, something is cracking. And it's not weakness. It's not a phase. It's not burnout. It's a deeper intelligence inside you saying, enough. Enough of chasing things that don't light you up. Enough of living for applause. Enough of carrying the weight of an identity that was never truly yours. This internal chaos, it's the demolition phase. And demolition always feels like destruction, until you realize it's clearing space for something better. But no one tells you that. They call it a crisis. They say you're lost. They whisper about therapy, about getting back to normal. But maybe normal is exactly what made you sick in the first place. Because here's the raw truth. The awakening isn't elegant. It's messy. ugly. It's crying at night with no reason. It's losing interest in the things that once defined you. It's grieving identities you didn't even choose. And yet, it's the most important thing you'll ever experience. You are not falling apart, you are falling into place. But you have to be willing to sit in the ruins for a while, to not rush the rebuilding, to not grasp at quick fixes. Because if you skip this part, the raw, uncomfortable part, you'll just end up recreating the same version of yourself with a shinier mask. The real you can only be built on ashes. Let it burn. One of the hardest pills to swallow is this: growth is lonely. Not because you choose solitude, but because transformation disrupts attachment. When you begin to wake up, you expect people to celebrate you, to support this new clarity you're cultivating. But what actually happens is the opposite. They pull away. The connection starts to feel strained. Conversations become shallow. You sense a wall you can't explain, and suddenly, the people who once felt like home now feel like noise. And it hurts. God, it hurts. Because no one warns you that becoming who you really are often means outgrowing who you've always been. And with that, outgrowing the people tied to that version of you. You'll question yourself. Am I being selfish? Arrogant? Cold? Number? You're being honest. And honesty has a cost. You're not cutting people off. You're simply no longer abandoning yourself to keep them close. There's a difference. Because here's the unspoken truth. Most relationships aren't built on truth. They're built on mutual roles, on comfort, on unspoken contracts like don't grow too fast or don't question the rules. But once you break those contracts, by evolving, by changing your values, the dynamic collapses. And that collapse feels like grief. Because it is. You'll grieve the people who leave, the ones who can't or won't understand, the ones who choose the version of you that no longer exists. And it'll be tempting to shrink again, to apologize for your growth just to belong. Don't. Because in the silence that follows, something profound happens. You meet yourself. Not the version shaped by approval or fear, but the real one, raw, undeniable, free. Yes, you'll lose people, but the ones who remain, they'll see you, the real you. And nothing less than that is worth keeping. You'd think that becoming more self-aware, more grounded, more real would inspire others. But often, it does the opposite. It threatens them. Because the moment you stop playing the game, everyone still playing feels exposed. They'll say you've changed. Of course you have. That's the whole point. But they won't say it with admiration. They'll say it with suspicion, with distance, with that quiet judgment that hides behind smiles and concerned questions like, "Are you okay?" What they really mean is, "Can you go back to making me feel comfortable again?" You're not preaching. You're not even confronting them. But your growth is. Your discipline, your silence, your refusal to participate in nonsense. It all acts like a mirror. And people don't like mirrors when they're not ready to see themselves. So they'll react. Some will mock. Others will gossip. Some will simply vanish. But the message is the same. You're making us uncomfortable. Tone it down. Don't. Because here's the hidden mechanism. Collective mediocrity doesn't survive on power. It survives on agreement. It needs your participation, your compliance. It needs you to keep pretending that the trivial things matter, that fitting in is more important than waking up, that comfort is the goal. So when you withdraw your energy, your attention, your obedience, the system trembles. You're no longer useful as a mirror that reflects the group's illusion. You become dangerous, not because you're violent, but because you're awake. And the awakened are always treated as threats, not because they harm, but because they remind others of how deeply asleep they are. Your clarity becomes confrontation. Your truth becomes rebellion. Your presence becomes a revolution. Most won't thank you for it, but deep down, they'll feel it, and that's enough. So now you're awake, or at least awakening. You've seen the cracks in the illusion. You've felt the sting of truth. You've endured the silence that follows when the applause fades. But here's the part no one prepares you for. The greatest resistance won't come from the world. It'll come from inside you. The real war begins not when others leave you behind, but when you have to leave behind the version of you that still craves them. The part of you that still wants to be liked, still seeks permission, still hesitates to speak your truth because it might make things weird. That's the part that dies hardest, and it will fight with doubt, with guilt, with whispers like, "Who do you think you are?" It will show up in your weakest moments and offer you a way out. Go back, numb out, fit in, be safe. But going back means betraying yourself again. And this time, you know better. That's the hell of awakening. You can't unsee it. You can't unknow it. The old comforts don't comfort. The old lies don't work. The old identity, it's a costume that no longer fits. And now, every day, you're faced with a choice. Continue rebuilding yourself, piece by raw, honest piece, or collapse back into the person you were pretending to be. This is the war. You versus the echo of who you used to be. And there is no finish line, no final battle, just a series of moments where you either choose alignment or abandonment. But here's the reward. Once you fight through this, no one can control you. You won't need applause. You won't bend for approval. You won't fear solitude, because solitude gave you yourself. You won't be invulnerable, but you'll be unbreakable. And in a world built on illusions, that makes you dangerous. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to click the like and subscribe button.